But yeah, if not, let's get started. So I'm going to share some slides and get started. Yeah, so for context, today I will be here talking a bit about my journey in tech as a woman in tech and also talking about imposter syndrome. So let me just make sure I can do move slides. Excellent. Yeah, so I will first tell you a bit about myself and kind of about what my struggles with imposter syndrome were, and then kind of about good strategies to tackle imposter syndrome, and I guess what exactly is imposter syndrome. So hey everyone, my name is Maddie or Madeline. I was MIT class of 2020. I studied computer science, and I am now a software engineer at Google, where I work on Google search. So I had a journey in terms of like multiple internships on my way toward Google, and I'll just go through this briefly so you have some context on, I guess, kind of the experience I have and kind of what I might be able to share. So when I was a freshman, I interned at a startup called Shelfie, which was a small startup in South SF. I was a mobile dev for them. Next, I interned, it doesn't say in the slide here, but I interned at a mid-sized business analytics company called Dimensional Insight near my alma mater, MIT. So I think 5 minutes drive away. After that, junior year, I interned as a summer technology analyst, which is, I guess, like another fancy way of saying software engineer at Morgan Stanley. I also interned at Microsoft for my winter internship, and I interned at IBM and Amazon as well for, well, IBM was spring internship, Amazon was my summer internship after that. And then finally, I am now at Google Search as a software engineer. So yeah, I've had my fair share of companies and fair share of experiences. What I want to emphasize is that even though obviously these companies have different cultures and different elements and different things, I still experience personally imposter syndrome throughout this entire thing. So I wanted to emphasize that this is by no means anything that you are struggling with alone. If this happens to if this happens to apply to you, it's definitely something that many people experience. So first of all, I know I've been talking about imposter syndrome a lot, but what exactly is imposter syndrome? So imposter syndrome is quite common in the STEM like industry and professions and academia as well. It's essentially when you feel as though you might not be actually like qualified, actually deserve the success you have for the work you're doing, and you're like afraid that you will, people will realize like after a bit, wait, like she's a fraud or like they're a fraud or something. This is imposter syndrome, and some of the comments that people have said and I have said when getting a job or opportunity or something is like, oh, I totally lucked out. Oh, they made a mistake letting me in. I can't actually do this. So yeah, I can definitely relate to this. For me personally, I came into MIT and studied computer science without actually having a good base for computer science. So even though that is not by any means not just abnormal, I still felt as though I was like much behind some of my peers because some people had been coding since the high school or before high school and had a really big head start. So especially in my first 2 years, I think it got a bit better after that. It was really, really hard for me to justify to myself like why I deserved to be here and why I deserved any of the opportunities I may have gotten. So for context, freshman year and sophomore year, I worked at a undergraduate lab. I worked as an undergraduate researcher at a lab doing research regarding Bayesian modeling in um, for pulmonary disease detection, and I got that opportunity without really knowing anything about Bayesian modeling, without knowing anything and knowing very few things about computer science as well. So for me, that really hit home because when I was trying to learn and trying to onboard, I just had to ask so many questions to my PhD supervisor and to my to the lab PI, and I felt as though I was like wasting everyone's time. And even though I know now that it's like normal to ask a lot of questions when you're just starting, to to ask questions in general. I really did not realize that at the time. So I was very hesitant about trying to ask more questions and about trying to take up more of people's time because I just felt really bad that I was like quote unquote wasting people's time. So that's an example of how imposter syndrome definitely affected me in my first year. And I will tell you anecdotes, but that like did not stop throughout. And to be honest, I think I am still battling imposter syndrome at this point in my life and in my career. And it's definitely not something that you can just tell to go away and it'll go away. But there definitely are ways to mitigate imposter syndrome, which I will go over later. So something that you can ask yourself when trying to see if you do have imposter syndrome, these are some useful questions. For example, like, do you chalk up your success to luck or timing, computer error? I mean, I still do. Like, I will say that every single time I've gotten an offer, gotten an opportunity, the first thing I think of is like, oh, like they probably, gave it to someone else and I just got lucky. And also, like, if I can do it, anyone can. That's also very common talking to other people in the industry as well. I will say that even though I'm not a perfectionist, I still take I guess like a personal affront, but I still am very, very conscious about if I have anything wrong in my code, which does exacerbate imposter syndrome. I think for me personally, I am not crushed by constructive criticism, but I do definitely consider myself inept a lot of the time. And I do try to use constructive criticism to improve, but as you probably know, it's like it is hard to make permanent changes to yourself or to your career, anything like that. So I'm still very much working on that. And also, yeah, when I succeed, you secretly feel like you're fooled again. I definitely feel that. Like so for context, I have actually gotten return offers for every internship I've ever interned at, but every time after the end of the internship, like I was like in the mindset, oh, like I've done this for a summer, they'll realize that I'm incompetent and not bring me back. Somehow that hasn't happened, but yeah, I think that that is something that a lot of people do realize, and I think part of it deals with being very, very, very cognizant of your own flaws and not realizing that everyone has flaws, and it's just that people don't like to broadcast those flaws because people only like to look at the good within them, or only like to showcase the good and the accomplishments within themselves and not really talk about the failures. And yeah, and finally, do you worry that it's just a matter of time before you're found out? That kind of goes back into like, oh, like I fooled them again. That is very, very common. And I just want to emphasize that if you do feel any of these bullet points, you are not alone. A lot of people, I don't think I've met like a single person who has not suffered imposter syndrome at some point. And if you think about it, that's like mathematically very unlikely um, if everyone thinks that they're like, for example, below average, there is no average anymore. So it's like definitely something that is very much a mindset thing and very much something that is, I think, human nature to self-doubt yourself, but it's unfortunately very common among people, especially in STEM, and I'll go over some statistics later. So yeah, if you do at any point have related to this, you're in good company. I think imposter syndrome is very common, but is especially very, very common among people who happen to be high achieving in their respective fields. So, oops, I just want to say that, like, J-Lo, Sotomayor, a bunch of really cool people, really awesome people that I look up to and other people look up to, definitely have openly talked about suffering imposter syndrome at points in their lives. So yeah, like please be very cognizant that it's not just you and that even really cool people who seem like they have everything really do suffer as well. And 70 to 80% of people have experienced this at some point or have reported, so maybe the numbers even more, we don't know. But oftentimes they tend to be really successful people in their fields. They tend to be women more than men or people from underrepresented or marginalized communities, especially in tech, and especially like young professionals just starting their careers and college students. So unfortunately, this kind of is a vicious cycle because with people who are more marginalized, if they don't think that they can succeed, then they're less likely to try, and then therefore there's less marginalized people in the community, and then it goes on. So effects include high stress levels, lack of self-confidence, adverse effects on aspirations, and being more afraid to fail. And I just want to say, as an anecdote, like the reason why I didn't apply to some internships freshman year is because I was just terrified that I didn't have the resume for it, that I would like, they would look at my resume and they would laugh. Of course, now I know that like recruiters are not going to laugh at me, even if I have a bad resume. And also, unfortunately, this resulted in me like, you never take 100% of the shots you don't give. You never get, you miss 100% of the shot you don't take. So that kind of made me ineligible for a lot of opportunities I could have gone for freshman year. And if I had known this, knowing back then, I definitely would have at least tried, because the worst they can do is say no. So yeah, I think that's a good mindset to have. And in terms of trying to beat imposter syndrome, it's definitely harder than just talking, but I think to put it into perspective, oftentimes you will think that you know a strict super subset of what other people know, but actually it's more like a Venn diagram. There's a lot of stuff that you know that other people don't, and some stuff that other people know that you don't. But that's the beauty of like collaboration and teamwork and everything. You get to learn from each other, and everyone is thinking, a lot of people are thinking that they don't know everything that other people know. So as a result, I think that if you think more about, I'm valuable, I have some stuff that other people also need as well, it might help with beating imposter syndrome and with putting everything into perspective. So yeah, long-term applications include people less likely to want to collaborate, to contribute to open source, because like, again, for me at least, like I was thinking like, oh, like if my code is really bad, I don't want anyone to read it. Have like stretch goals or apply for jobs or internships. That's definitely what happened to me. Like I always used to set my expectations low, because I knew like, oh, even if I do the bare minimum, at least I'm meeting my expectations, instead of like trying to reach for better goals. And also for the jobs and applications thing, I didn't really want to apply to jobs freshman year and sophomore year, because I felt that I was underqualified, that I would not stand a chance, even though, again, it would have been much more optimal for me just to go for it. Yeah, sorry, I think I won't play the video for time purposes, but essentially, this is a video showing that even Michael Jordan, who's amazing, obviously, what he did, definitely suffers imposter syndrome and definitely talks about failure as a very common thing. Yeah, so the last thing I want to say is essentially you can think about imposter syndrome like this. So essentially, you see that the guy is like juggling a bunch of plates and he's like doing it super well, and that's like basically you and everyone else, like that's what you see for like any like successful like software engineer or successful researcher or successful actress or actor. You see this, but what you don't see is you don't see the path that people have taken to get there. And you can see in this graphic, there's like a lot of broken plates. Like you don't see all of the like the mistakes and the failures that have plagued people on their way to success. And if you think about everyone having kind of their own set of plates and their own set of broken plates as well, that kind of is a metaphor for what imposter syndrome is like. Like you really only see the end result. You only see what people want to, like what the polished performative result that people have given to the world. Oftentimes you don't really see like all the failures, all of the like the twists and turns in the journey that people have gotten to there. So yeah, that is, I think, something that hopefully might help with imposter syndrome. But I will just say that I definitely still suffer to imposter syndrome at this point. So again, like I'm probably not the best person to talk about it, but I do think that the more people talk about it and the more we normalize it, the better it is for everyone. So yeah, with that being said, yeah, I just want to say that even if you think that if for whatever reason, if you think that you're inadequate or anything, like you probably suffer from imposter syndrome, and it's definitely a very real thing and it can affect you negatively. But I think it's really important to try to put things into perspective, realize that you're amazing, that again, a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes that you never see. And if, even for you yourself, like I definitely hid a lot of my like insecurities and stuff on my way on my journey, because of course like talking to recruiters, you have to sell the best version of yourself. It's like kind of unfortunate, but that's what you got to do to get jobs. And I think that talking about it will really help, hopefully, the STEM community and help the community in general just be better and uplift everyone. So yeah, that is it. I will stop sharing. But yeah, I just want to really thank you for letting me talk to you all about this. This is something that really, I think, means a lot to me personally because it's something that I have dealt with a lot, and talking to other people, I realize that a lot of people deal with. So yeah, with that being said, I'll pass it back on to our organizers. And yeah, thank you very much for letting me speak and have a great day.